Good morning, a warm welcome from my side to this EIP-SCC webinar on delivery models for smart cities and communities. My name is Philip Tepper. I work for ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability, and will be the chair of this webinar, but I'm not here alone. I have also my dear Mr. Georg Huben, who is a policy officer at DG Energy from the European Commission, with me. Georg, how are you doing?
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Philip. Thank you very much. I'm doing quite well. Weather is fine where I'm sitting in my little home office now. So I'm quite looking forward to this webinar and to lots of interesting and challenging questions, of course. Thank you.
That's great to hear. I'm sitting here in the ICLEI office because we manage our room space in a way adapted to the situation. I hope you are all fine and stay healthy and enjoy the next 90 minutes of presentations and discussions. Before we start, there's some e-housekeeping going on. This webinar will be recorded from the start. So if you do not want to be recorded, please do not use the chat or do not make any voice contributions. All others, of course, will be invited to use the chat and question and answers for technical questions. If you have issues with this webinar, you can basically approach us there as a technical support from ICLEI in there. Just send out a message and they will try to help you. There are no fire drills planned for today, at least here in our office. I hope it's the same for you. You can basically use all the functions of GoToWebinar, but you will start in listen-only mode so that we have the room for the presenters to give. We will have 4 presentations today. A virtual coffee break will start after our second speaker in about 40-45 minutes. And there we will have also the possibility, to just make yourself comfortable and get to the coffee place you have or refresh yourself. You will have the chance to ask questions for clarification after each presentation. Please really keep those questions to something that you did not understand or would like to have a clarification on, because we would like to open for the discussion at the end of the webinar. And you can feel free to note down already questions you have in the chat for the later discussion, not to forget about them, or the good old pen and paper. So what are we talking about today? We are in the field of smart cities and communities, and there I just brought up the definition as is commonly used by the EIP-SCC marketplace: cities and communities using technological solutions to improve the management of the urban environment with certain particular goals to have improved public services, in general, a better quality of life. So it's a high-level concept. Enhanced urban resilience, I would say in those times of COVID-19, quite interesting sub-aspect, important one. Effective resource management. We've seen this before. The resources are not infinite, and with the smart cities and communities could contribute to this. And this leads in the end, hopefully, to more sustainable urban areas. Georg, how is this done in practice with EIP-SCC? I would like to invite you to share your presentation for the introduction of the EIP-SCC SCC marketplace with us. The floor is yours.
With pleasure, Philip. Thank you. The introduction of Philip, of course, already emphasized and underlined the importance of cities. So what I would like to give you, and these slides might appear familiar to those ones who have joined our last 3 days of matchmaking, which was also looking into COVID-19, how to cope with it, but more from a matchmaking perspective. So forgive me for that, but it's still extremely important. So why do we bother about smart cities and why now? Well, first of all, some of the arguments actually really didn't change over time. You see that the majority of the youth population lives in cities, a good share of that in small and medium-sized cities, who are most affected by the current situation and also by all kinds of other problems where big cities tend to cope a bit better with. The cities are responsible for the biggest share of the youth GDP. They deliver on all possible scenarios and challenges, including resilience, as already mentioned, but also CO2 reduction, sustainability, innovation, and so on. And since this is their specific situation, since this is their sort of pivotal position, they are also at the forefront of COVID-19. And that's actually why we come together today, to have an insight in how cities cope with that. Now, just very quickly to give you an overview, what is the EU support to cities? Well, first of all, there is the European Green Deal. You might have heard of that one. There is the massive renovation wave included in it. There is cleaner transport and logistics included, and all over the place, ICT measures to actually glue everything together and to really make it work also from a digital perspective. Then we have the next generation EU proposal, which was just suggested with a budget of not less than 750 billion euro. Well, that's a massive amount of money. And what's quite interesting and good to see is that in fact this proposal confirms the European Green Deal actually as the EU's recovery strategy. And then last but not least, of course, you know that we have the Horizon Europe program lurking around the corner. So it's just about half a year now that we will have a new framework program in place with a lot of activities on cities. For example, the mission on climate neutral and smart cities, but also continued support to platforms such as this one, the Smart Cities Marketplace, but a good number of other ones. So you see, cities will still be in the focus and broadly supported. Now, with this, I would come to an end and would, just be very curious and hearing about the four presentations we are having today. Actually presenting cities in general, they are important, but this time we are going to dive a bit deeper into four specific roles. And thank you for being with us, and happy to hear your questions and insights. And with this, I give back to Philip. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Georg, for this really rich introduction. Keep it short and precise where we stand, what we are doing. To all those that do not know Georg, he is working there since 2010 at the European Commission as policy officer, and he is responsible for this marketplace that we are talking about. And he is also taking part in many different committees, cross EC team. And this is also what we will talk today a lot about. It's about cross-departmental knowledge sharing and joint efforts working together. And this in many cases means also we are talking about change agents that we need to identify. So let me take a bit of background to spice up what we are talking about. Why can smart city solutions be hard to deliver is one question you will hear on and on and on. There are many stakeholders, like mentioned before. They have vested interests, local governments, technology lead suppliers, different communities, businesses. And they are rarely aligned, which in many cases leads to certain market failure and leads that technologies are not basically rolled out, or that certain costs situation are not clear. Investors normally seek low risks, certain for rapid returns, other than the more socioeconomic economy models on medium return, but still you have to have a certain return scheme in place. And it's sometimes tricky when public benefits, something like water or air cannot be or should not be monetized. So we have also technology suppliers that need to find their way through the jungle of regulations and policy environments. As an anecdote from Germany during COVID-19, we are facing a rapid change in terms of simplifying certain regulations. That's a positive side effect to this, to ensure certain regulatory barriers are not that strong anymore. This is a couple of points behind this, but what can cities do? They have, of course, their direct public delivery services, but it's not always a practical solution on a large scale because it might be too expensive. But cities can support and unlock and leverage private initiatives to come up with joint approaches. And this is exactly what our speakers today will talk about. Well, we have split today's webinar into 4 main topics: cities as regulators, cities as facilitators, cities as direct procurers, and cities as partners. They are fluid and sometimes complementary, but there are differences between that we will show you, and it's recommended to take a look at all because there's no one size fits all situation when it comes to smart cities. That's also already time to introduce our speakers. We will have in the first part 2 speakers, Dr. Luise Noring, who works for City Facilitators and the Copenhagen Business School. She will talk about cities as regulators and providing us with case studies from Cincinnati, US. I think this is pronounced differently, but I won't try it again. Copenhagen from Denmark. And our second speaker will be Gonzalo Cabezas from Barcelona CIty Council. And he will talk about the role of cities as facilitators, of course, talking about Barcelona, where it's based, a role model for facilitation of all kind of public procurement, smart city approaches. In the second half of the webinar, we will hear from Renske Martijnse-Hartikka from Virium Helsinki, a story around pre-commercial procurement and cities as direct procurers from Helsinki in Finland. And last but not least, we will close with a Harbour City Rotterdam case where a lot is going on in terms of smart cities development, and they are focusing in many cases on partnership models. So Roland will talk about cities as partners. So I hope we have a rich menu there, and I would like to start taking a look into the first topic, cities as regulators. We will have Dr. Luise Noring talking about this in a second, and I will give you one slide about the contents from how we see this framed. Using regulation to fund smart cities, how, the context, the approach, and some key consideration. So it could be that a profitable private activity has a potential for smart city tech implementation that's ongoing. For instance, as a developer of building our new mixed-use neighborhood system. So basically you have naturally there a regulated environment, for instance, district development, and the city has a smart city agenda connected also to urban development, to reuse of space or even growth of the city. But the supplier has no direct incentive to provide smart technology improvements because there are non-monetized social benefits at the primary and not so much monetized benefits. So approach could be to introduce a policy or regulation to incentivize this delivery. That means that certain features of the project are supported, and basically the regulation is in place for rollout. For instance, the case for charging points, the infrastructure you need, of course, for electric mobility, but it's sometimes chicken and egg question who provides this. So here regulators could play a role. But also land policies, and I'm sure we will hear from Luise in a second about this, that allow to capture the development and fund particularly the smart ambitions of this, so criteria-based. What you would need to consider there is how to best engage with the market to set the right regulation level. Too strict might discourage. Too lenient won't deliver the outcomes that you might need to have in order to, for instance, also deliver your sustainability goals of the city. That's to introduce you a bit to this topic. And now I would like to introduce you Dr. Luise Noring, who is the research director and assistant professor at Copenhagen Business School, where she attained her PhD. And this was on supply chain partnerships. In 2016, Luise Noring founded CIty Facilitator, which operates out of Copenhagen with clients across Europe and the US. Therefore, also our cases come from those destinations. CIty Facilitators offers niche consultancy specializing in urban governance and finance. Luise, I would like to hand over the floor to you to share your insights and presentation with us.
Well, thank you very much, Philip, for this introduction. I will go into my presentation straight away. It is a little bit different for me in the sense that usually I open the floor to questions. I guess we're not really able to do that, but I will let you decide whether or not that is possible. Also, please let me know if you can't hear me properly, if there's something wrong with the mic or something, right? Okay.
All fine,
yeah.
And there will be room for questions on your content later.
Okay, good. Yes, I have studied urban redevelopment for quite a few years now in many different European and Northern American cities. Recently, I have also looked at some Chinese examples and South Korean, but the vast majority of my experience is mainly from Europe, and then secondly from North America. I'm just going to get up and close the door because this is okay. So I look at land value capture, which I will introduce here. How do I get to the next? How do I get to the next slide? Oh, I just swipe. Okay. Or are you managing my slides, Philip? Oh.
No,
Okay.
I'm not. You have control over your slides.
Okay. So cities are unlocking public wealth by creating these publicly owned but privately managed corporations. They are one of the ways of doing this is to identify and also, if possible, bundle publicly owned, underutilized land and buildings that can be used in this urban redevelopment process. I don't know how to get the next slide. It doesn't really seem to react in real time, this thing. How do I get it? Okay. Oh, here we go. I know now what's wrong. Okay, good. So what we see is if we want to make a comparison between now in particular the Danish using the Copenhagen City and Port Development Corporation as an example, and the US, where I am not restricting myself to using the Cincinnati case, even though that is probably the one that I have the best understanding of in the North America, but I've also looked at Philadelphia, Rhode Island and other places, how urban redevelopment of publicly owned land assets are conducted. So in Copenhagen, we have we are using, or Copenhagen City and Port is a publicly owned, privately managed institution that has a very holistic approach to citywide development. It does not just focus on the actual development areas, but it is used as a finance or institutional finance vehicle for spurring the economic growth of the entire city. It uses the yield or the profits of the publicly owned assets to invest in the citywide metro system. So it has a unified disposition of public assets. If we compare that with the US, what we see is that usually urban redevelopment is done using PPPs, and quite often in PPPs there is a transactional focus. So the focus is very much on that can be a distinct development, a large building, or a plot of land within a broader redevelopment area. And it is usually centered on the contractual relationships. Also, what we see is that the yield from the redevelopment will then usually flow to the private developer. So the public, they get the benefit of having the land developed, but they do not harvest the profits that are generated from this development. When then they want to do build out public transit systems, they will typically go to the voters and ask for an additional, usually it's a sales tax. So it is a totally different approach. It also means that it is a more fragmented approach. Not only in the US, what we see is that the public authorities are less able to merge the different land areas, and therefore we have a fragmentation of public authorities, and because of the PPPs we also have a fragmentation of private stakeholders that play a more substantial role in the actual development. So if we look at Copenhagen, which is really the focus of my presentation, what we see is that in the 80s, Copenhagen was on the brink of bankruptcy. It's difficult to imagine today, but that is actually how it was. It had 17.5% unemployment, massive budgetary shortfall. It had stopped building more social housing because there was already an overrepresentation of residents of social housing in the municipality. So in the 90s, national and local government actually got together in order to put together a plan for how could they rescue the capital city of Denmark from the brink of bankruptcy. In '92 they set up the Ørestad Development Corporation. They took the land. It was nationally owned land from the military, a military training ground. It was strategically located, and they handed it over to this publicly owned, privately managed development corporation, Ørsted Development Corporation. In 2007, they went on to the next very large area of Copenhagen, which was the entire harbor area. In all its development, it has used the land development as a vehicle to pay for state-of-the-art driverless metro system that spans the entire city and has helped revitalize the city's economy, but also increase the price or the value of the land, because Ørsted was actually quite isolated, and suddenly with the introduction of the metro system, it was 7 minutes by metro ride to the city center. In 2009, what we see is that Copenhagen was one of the richest, one of the wealthiest cities in the world. So the exercise really rendered results. Land value capture. What we see is that you have national, local governments. They transfer land and building assets to Copenhagen City and Port Development Corporation. Then local government rezones the land for residential and commercial use. This allows the land to increase in value because suddenly it has a new, more productive purpose. City and Port borrows based on the increased value of the land. It loan finances the entire citywide metro system and urban redevelopment. And it facilitates the development through land sales, leasing, and owned development. This generates revenue that is used to service the debt and make investments in further redevelopment. So it's a revolving funds model. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the land value capture model, and it is I would say it's in stark contrast to how development is done. And now I'm generalizing. It's a broad generalization because the Cincinnati case is also very successful and has rendered many benefits. But it is in stark contrast to how urban redevelopment is usually done in the US, which is very driven by tax increment financing. So you have TIFs and you have TIF districts, and it's very much driven by tax incentives, including some kind of cash rewards that are sometimes bonds financed, but bonds are also they are repaid with the future tax contributions usually. Okay, so let's go more into the different areas. What we see is that since the mid-80s, Copenhagen City and Port has accounted for 50% of all development in Copenhagen, which is why we can actually ascribe this corporation to a significant role in revitalizing all of Copenhagen and making Copenhagen one of the wealthiest cities in the world. And
Luise,
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. We are all running out of time. I would suggest that you go to your conclusion slide now and guide us through the conclusions. And unfortunately, we have just this limited amount in the webinar.
Yes, I totally appreciate that. And this is just a metro that has been fully financed by the development corporation. And we see now the land in Ørsted was strategically located between Copenhagen Airport and the city. You see this vast green area. Okay, and this is the North Harbor that they're using landfill to expand the land available for urban redevelopment. And this is Lynetteholm, which is a project that they have started on, which is basically flood protection for all of Copenhagen. And again, they're using land value capture. They are not using taxpayers' money to finance these huge infrastructure investments. The conclusion. So the conclusion is infrastructure, infrastructure, infrastructure. This is incredibly important, both to the increase the value of the public assets, and also to secure, like Lynetteholm, secure the city for future sea rise raises. Also, another very important lesson is that most cities know what they owe, so they know how much they owe, but they don't know what they own. So they need to understand what are the assets that local and sometimes also national government own that can be repurposed and used for land value capture. So you need to make public ownership transparent. You need to be willing to merge entities and assets. So in order to prevent a very fragmented management of these assets, like in Copenhagen City and Port, they basically took the port authorities and removed their land ownership, because the land ownership was in place with Copenhagen City and Port Development so that they could develop the port for urban expansion. And actually the first year after they did that, so the first year after they took away the land from the port authorities, the land ownership, that was the first year when the port authority was profitable, because it was able only to focus on its operations. You need to encourage national and local government collaboration, secure political alliances to minimize political interference. In national law, there's a mandate that says that Copenhagen City and Port must always sell at the highest price, because any profit maximization by city and port basically is profiting the public sector. And there are no quick fix. It's a long haul. It really is. It's 30, 40 years planning. And that's it. That's basically my conclusions. I don't need to go into this. So.
Thank you so much, Luise, for this introduction. And sorry again, but we have a packed program today. I would like to invite the audience, the attendees. If you have a clarification question, please raise your hand now. You have a raise your hand function next to your name. That does not seem to be the case at this very moment. So far so good. I would like to say to everybody, those presentations in full length will be made available and also recording on the website. So you have not basically missed too much. And Luise, we will come back to you on the question and answer session later. Thank you very much so far for sharing your insights.
My pleasure, my pleasure. I'll mute myself now.
Lovely, good. Then we would go on. And where do we go on? We head to the topic cities as facilitators. And we have Gonzalo Cabezas Westcast talking about e-cargo bike schemes in Barcelona about this. And I'm already curious about to hear how this facilitation aspect did fly off in what he will talk about. Before a bit of a quick introduction into this, what do we mean by facilitating the delivery of smart city solutions? A smart city solution is available and it yields the potential for private gains. Yeah, so shared, oh no, what happened now? Okay, so shared e-bikes, like in the case of Barcelona, we will hear in a second. Suppliers are discouraged from delivering because it might be some upfront investment costs or risks that they do not want to take, infrastructure needed, technology that's maybe not at hand or not that easy to achieve. So the approach is here to kickstart an activity very much similar to those crowdfunding, basically, but completely different. Financial in-kind support, so grants and loans, so that you develop the local market knowledge, and this is quite a local approach taken here. What is important is there that the business case needs to be solid, so that the supplier can really deliver, and basically all the surrounding are based very good. A key question is, will this become self-sustaining, or is this basically one-off shot? And of course, the assessments are important to take on after, before and during the cases. And as basically as a facilitator also of the financial in-kind support, are you expecting to get your money back? Maybe in many cases, this won't be so much of an investment you're doing. Yeah, it's more an investment to the greater good. But how did this work in Barcelona? That's what we want to know from Gonzalo. Gonzalo is working since 2014 as project manager at the Barcelona CIty Council. He was involved in the Grow Smarter EU project, which is a smart cities project with different cities involved, and he will talk about the insights from there. He has a master's degree in electronic engineering from the University of Barcelona. And without any further ado, Gonzalo, I would like to give you the floor for your presentation.
Okay, hi. Thanks for the introduction. I'll try to give you a practical view on the experience that I will get in the Grow Smarter project. Well, first, what is the Grow Smarter project? That will help you to understand what was the framework of operation of this experience that I'm going to present today about the micro-distribution of freight in Barcelona. So essentially, the Grow Smarter project is an European project funded by the European Commission, and it has the aim of deploying, demonstrate, and validate 12 smart solutions in energy, infrastructure, and transport. Okay, it essentially fosters the collaboration between the public administration, the private sector, and the academia. Okay, in order to improve the quality of life of the citizens, to reduce the environmental impact, and to create sustainable and economic development. In essence, we wanted to create a market to roll out all the solutions that we implement in the cities of the project. So today we're going to talk about micro-distribution of freight. This was one of the solutions that we deploy in the project. And well, what was the challenge here? What was the challenge of Barcelona related to this solution? Well, as you know, the online shopping has increased exponentially in the past years, and that leads to an increase of traffic hazards in the city, increase of the pollution and the noise levels in the city. And well, this is something that we have identified since some time ago, but in the past years, the situation has increased a lot. So we understood that we have to change the model of delivery in the cities, and we have to try to find some solutions. What we wanted to do is to deploy what we call what's called the urban consolidation center. These consolidation centers aims a reduction of the vehicles entering into the city center for doing this delivery of goods. Okay, essentially, what we do with these centers is the transport operators carry their goods to these platforms, to these consolidation centers, and from there they are transferred to the cargo bites for the last mile delivery. In Grossmarter, we use electric tricycles for this last mile delivery, and we equip them with different sensors in order to measure the impact of this solution. Okay, we are focusing, of course, in small packages because we are doing this delivery with electric tricycles, and this is the solution that we wanted to implement. So, how we did it? So, how did we execute this solution? Well, as I mentioned before, with the collaboration with the public and the private entities. Okay, so the Barcelona City Council in this case, we grant a concession of a public space that was offered for free to the last mile operator, but in exchange, this last mile operator had to be what we call a neutral operator. This means that they have to be open to work with any carrier. Okay, and apart of that, they have to, of course, offer the data that they generate about the service, the operation of the service, and the business model behind to the City Council. So this is how we work within the Grossmarter project, and of course, because we were also working in Grossmarter, the last mile operator also offered this information to the project. Okay, but well, we didn't start from zero in Grossmarter because the council had also some previous experiences in providing these similar services in the city. Well, it started in 2013 with another European project called SMILE. In that case, instead of offering this a public building for the operation of the service, we tried to use some space at street level. In that project, there was very limited participation of the public administration in the project, so we were very into the project. But well, we find some difficulties, and we didn't quite find the right solution. So it has an evolution. We also were involved in the Novelog project from 2016 to 2018. To end up in the model that we have at present, which is the one I explained before. So we offer these public facilities in a very good location next to a big train station in Barcelona that we offer for free to the last mile operators, and from there they offer their service. Here on the right, it's listed the entities that participate in the project. As I said, it's public administration with the Barcelona City Council. There was also the academia involved. It was TENIT, which is a research center with expertise in transport, and I2CAD, which is another research center specialized in sensoring. And of course, the private company, who is the one in charge of the operation of the service. So, okay, that was the model. So now we're going to see what were the figures that we get during these 2 years of monitoring during Grossmarter. Well, the company could offer every tour, of the tricycles could deliver 56 parcels per tour. That means that in 2 years they offered at about 200,000 deliveries, 72,000 kilometers run with these electric tricycles. That means a reduction in CO2 compared if the service was offered with standard vehicles of 95%. And there was also a reduction of noise, of course, because we were using electric tricycles. But, well, these are quite relevant figures, but something which is more important, I guess, is that this 92% of success deliveries, because this means that we are not just offering a service to the city and reduce the pollution and the emissions, but we are also offering a very good service, which is even better than some standard ones. I'm not an expert in logistics, but apparently this level of success deliveries is quite high, and this can be explained, but because they offer this proximity service to the neighborhood, and they, at the end of the day, they end up knowing which are the best times to deliver the parcels. They offer a proximity service, and they could reach this very high percentage of success deliveries. And of course, we are creating jobs, 16 full-time equivalent jobs related to this service. One of the aims that we mentioned at the beginning was to improve the economy and the services. So we are not only creating a good services, but we're also creating a sustainable business model of this service. Okay, and then, well, because the council was so interested in these results and the success that we achieved, now we are thinking replicating the solution. Okay, so the output from gross matter and the previous projects has been used for other research studies in order to find the best way to replicate this solution, not only in a pilot in gross matter, but in other places of the city. So we have learned about the demand and the areas of the city. We have a high demand of package deliveries. We have also used this experience to understand which is the area of activity of this kind of urban consolidation centers. We have somehow distributed in the city which are the best areas to replicate these urban consolidation centers, and we have also tried to find out how will that affect or the mobility in the city, what will be the impact of this kind of solutions in the city if we scale it up at the city level. And well, just to finalize some of the lessons learned that we got from this experience, some of them are quite obvious. Of course, we are reducing the pollution and the noise impact of these deliveries in the area of influence of the solution. This is quite understandable because you are using electric tricycles, but we're also reducing congestion. We're improving the delivery rates compared to the previous services, and we have found out that we can reduce costs and millage for conventional carriers. We have also understood or find out that this kind of model is especially sustainable in high density areas because there's a high demand of parcel deliveries, and it's most suitable in all quarter or pedestrian areas where there's a limitation of the traffic of traditional vehicles. This is something that happens at present in the city center of Barcelona. Standard vehicles can only access in specific windows of time during the day. So tricycles can access at any time of the day. So this is quite an advantage for the service. And of course, we have been very happy of the way we have collaborated with this. With the academia and with the private operator of the service. This is something we find out that well can be done in the future again. And of course, what we were also very happy to find out that we have created a sustainable service, a service that has a sustainable business model behind. Sometimes the solutions that we provide in projects are only sustainable during the life of the project, but we have to find solutions that can fly after the end of these funded projects. And we have found a solution which is sustainable, and that's why we wanted to replicate in other parts of the city. And
thank you so much, Gonzalo.
Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed for all your insights from Barcelona and the story behind last mile delivery. I would like to ask the attendees again to think about, do you have a question for clarification at this moment that you would like to raise? I see no hands coming up. So thank you very much indeed again for your contribution, Gonzalo. Much appreciated. Please stay with us here for later, for the discussion. And I feel it that people do want to go to this place now and have a bit of a break. So see you in 7 minutes and 30 seconds. So at 11, we will continue with this webinar. Stay tuned until then. So now is the time to use your spoon to get the milk foam out of your cup from your cappuccino. We will start in 1 minute. So a warm welcome. We are back for the webinar on delivery models, and we will jump into the second part with 2 more presentations before having our question and answer session. I would like to encourage you all to already use the chat now. If you have your questions or contributions, you can use the chat at all time, and we will take a look at this at the end. So please use the chat. I hope you had a good break. We will continue with cities as direct procurers. Cities do also sometimes procure coffee, but now today we talk about something else. It's also linked to mobility, so it's a bit of a coincidence that we are talking in many cases about mobility, but the approaches are very different here. Renske will talk about innovative mobility solutions in Helsinki in a second. And what does this mean that the city is a direct procurer? That means, and to give you a bit of context again, your ambition is to deliver a smart city solution yielding high public benefits. So basically you expect a real impact there, and basically it's something that's at the core services of the city. You can clearly define your goals. In many cases, standard solution is available, but also you can encourage the innovation of technology and develop this into a solution that really matters for the purpose of your city, for instance, in public transport systems. I'm pretty sure we will see a lot of innovation procurement coming up as a response to the COVID-19 public transport situations we are facing, to adapting also vehicles and things like this. And normally the private sector has little incentive to take a lead because upfront costs are high, or gains to be made are insufficient, too remote, and a complex regulatory framework is sometimes also a hindrance, for instance, when we're talking about autonomous vehicles and operation of public transport systems. So the approach is you directly procure the service, solution or innovation, or procure the research and develop to develop into this solution. And that's what we will listen into in a second, the pre-commercial procurement approach. You have to consider that you are in a bit of open waters there, so that you have to be confident to engage with the market well, to ensure that basically your expectations are realistic. And although many do take the standard city budget there, it's always worthwhile to take a look into alternative funding models such as green bonds, EIB loans for cities development, grants, etc. So it's a real pleasure to introduce Renske Martijnse-Hartikka from Forum Virium Helsinki. She will talk about the project Fabulous, and she works as senior project manager with over 16 years of experiences in both the private and the public sector. And she worked more than 12 years in urban mobility and many different EU-funded projects. She works at Forum Virium Helsinki, which is a non-profit innovation company owned by the city that holds the case for smart city development in Helsinki. And I would like to hand over to you, Renske. You have the floor for your presentation.
Thanks very much. Hello, everyone. There we go. Yeah, thanks. That was a thorough introduction already. So Renske Martijnse is my name. Indeed, I work for Forum Virium Helsinki as the Fabulous project coordinator. And Philip just mentioned in his introduction also, indeed, alternative funding methods such as grants, and the Fabulous project is such an example. It's a pre-commercial procurement project under the umbrella of Horizon 2020. And I will tell you for this presentation a little bit more about the process rather than the content. I would also love to talk a lot about what we're doing content-wise in Fabulous, but since this is about cities as procurers, I'll focus a little bit more on this particular model, because pre-commercial procurement is quite an unknown tool. It's basically an innovation tool, and we are very pleased, and yeah, we like it very much as a city to work. It's our fourth pre-commercial procurement already. So yeah, I will tell you a little bit more. But to start with, very shortly about Fabulous, as you see on my slide, it's about autonomous shuttles, but Fabulous is notably not a vehicle procurement. It's an R&D procurement for a turnkey solution, a solution that can operate fleets of these kind of shuttles as part of regular public transport in cities. And why did we start this? Well, of course, on a kind of higher level, we feel that, and when I say we, I'm talking about the buyers group of 6 cities. I will touch upon that a bit later. We feel that automation in public transport can help make this public transport more efficient, more attractive, and help people to choose this mode of transport over their private car, which in turn, of course, helps to keep cities livable and contributes to the CO2 neutrality goals. But it's not such a solution that we have envisaged is not really available yet in the market. The city's needs are not really met, and there needs to be still innovation done, R&D done, and PCP is a really good model to use to achieve this. So shortly, as I said, it's a tool from the European Commission to stimulate innovation, and PCP is always based on a concrete problem or challenge or a need, and it's not limited to existing products or services. And it's used when we really want to push, so to say, radical innovation. And for the public sector procurers, it gives an opportunity to compare the pros and cons of different competing solutions. We're not buying just one thing at the end of this project. There won't be just one solution, there will be multiple. And it's really demand-driven innovation, and that's what we very much like about this. And a logical follow-up of a PCP is a PPI, which is a public procurement of innovative solutions. It's used when there is already something in the market, maybe in small quantities, but something that doesn't need further R&D, basically. For companies, it's attractive, this type of pre-commercial procurement, because obviously, I mean, they get a large chunk of their R&D funded, and they also receive a first reference of these cities, because within this PCP, they will develop prototypes which will be tested in real life situations. And these group of Infabulous 6 procurers can act as a first reference and hopefully also as a first buyer. I could go into what the market currently offers, why this is not exactly meeting the needs of the city yet, but maybe I don't know if I have time for that. Maybe very shortly, that you've probably seen these shuttles drive around, and they have still too low speeds to be really a part of public transport. There aren't yet large fleets without stewards operated from remote control centers that are able to drive in all weather conditions, in hills and in the Finnish winter and the Greek summer, and with Dutch cyclists and with Norwegian steep hills, etc. Such solutions are not in place yet. So that's what was kind of the need of the cities. And we specified in a set of functional specifications what it is that we wanted, and that's what the work of the companies is based on. And how is this different from a traditional procurement? First of all, we have a buyers group. In Fabulous, it's 4 cities, a ministry, and a public transport operator, and we act as it's a joint procurement in that way. It's a high risk because it might be that the R&D doesn't pay off, or we don't get in the end what we want. And it's focusing on the long and medium term because, I mean, it's a 3-year project. So, and after the end of the project, there's a commercialization phase, which might also still take a year or 2 or 3. So we're looking at the medium and longer term. What's also very different is what I touched upon already, that it's a competitive process, and that we have different contracts with different suppliers, competing suppliers at the same time. I will show you in the next slide how this worked through the different phases. But so that's very different from traditional procurement and from buying pens or coffee cups, or what was the example that Philip put there. Maybe I go to the next slide because I can show you a little bit more into detail how it works with these phases. The first and a very important phase is the open market consultation, in which we are in direct contact with the market through events, webinars, surveys, FAQs, matchmaking tools or events, because we want to find out about the state of the art. We want to fine tune our challenge or our request for tenders. We need to be ambitious. We need to be radically innovative. That's what the European Commission tells us to do. But of course, we don't want to be over the top, kind of undoable innovative. It needs to be a balance between available budgets and the level of innovation. And to give you a view on these budgets, in Fabulous, we have an overall budget for the PCP for the companies of 5.5 million euros. So it's quite significant sums, I would say. And these budgets increase from phase to phase. In the first phase, which is the solution design, we worked with 5 suppliers, but we are running another PCP in which we expect to work with maybe 40 suppliers. Then the budgets might be a little bit lower. But anyway, you start with a relatively large group that does a relatively simple exercise, like a paperwork exercise, designing the solution. Then there's an evaluation process, and a selection goes to the next phase in which prototypes are developed. And after another evaluation process, the third phase is where the prototypes are tested in real life situations. And so the number of contracts decreases, the budget increases. And in Fabulous, a company or a consortium that has gone through this whole process receives approximately 1 million euros. After that, it's the commercialization phase, which is outside of the scope of the project, the one that I mentioned already, that would be followed by a procurement of innovation. So that's in a nutshell the PCP process. I put this slide in for kind of to be complete, but maybe I don't go into this too much. Maybe good to mention that the R&D needs to be at least 50% of the contract value. So it's not the intention that a company would buy a supersonic expensive sensor and then, you know, look how innovative I am and check that's it. No, they're expected to put a lot of staff costs in here. Companies from outside of the EU are also welcome, as long as the majority of the R&D work takes place in Europe. We have one consortium with a Canadian partner as well, for example. That's not necessarily a problem.
Renske, we are running out of time, so
I know. This is yeah, really good. Well, this is something that I've mentioned already. Most of this, the procuring partners, I wanted to still mention, because I expect there are quite some cities on the phone or on the webinar as well, that we have also a group of, we call them preferred partners or followers, with an interest in this topic and in the outcomes of this project. So if you're listening and you think that my city is actually also thinking about these shuttles, then be in touch. There's still, this is kind of an open thing, and you're very welcome, and then we can share a little bit more information on you. And also, if you're interested to know what kind of suppliers we are working with in this field testing phase, but we have the buses running in Helsinki already for 2 months, and from today onwards also in Tallinn in Estonia, from next week onwards also in Norway, then have a look at the fabulous website. You can see about the vehicles, the routes, etc. So yeah, I suppose this maybe sums it up. We like the close cooperation with the companies very much. We can follow these different solutions up close and personal, and really steer this development process as well. And it's been a really steep learning curve for the cities involved. Not only the cities, but also the road administrations, the traffic management centers, the emergency services, of course, also for the city, for the citizens. So it's been a very, yeah, we've been very happy with this project so far, and it's a really good way to push innovation very proactively from the city side. And it's a relatively simple process as well. It might not look that way, but I'm happy to tell more if anyone has questions or sends me an email later. But that's it for now. Thanks, Philip.
Thank you so much, Renske, for introducing Fabulous. I know it's more a teaser. You'll find all the information there, the email address, the website. We have one question for understanding for you. So how do you address the intellectual property questions around all those things in PCP?
Yeah, that's a good one. IPR is retained by the companies. So that's also a little bit different maybe, but the work that they do, they own. And yeah, there's of course, there's the kind of the risk benefit sharing of element, but that's maybe crucial to mention in very short. The companies retain the IPR.
Thank you very much. Anybody else having a question for clarification at this moment? Please raise your hand. Everything clear. So thank you very much once again, Renske, for your contributions. We will continue with our presentations, and we'll have our last speaker in a second. And there's a nice title around the cities as partners. To be honest, all those models before needed forms of partnerships and trust building, but we wanted to, with the last presentation, have a very particular focus on this very important element on there. Before Roland from Rotterdam talks about the city's approach, the city of Rotterdam, I will again quickly introduce to all this. So the context, the smart city solution that you may seek should deliver or drive both high public benefits and private gains. So we are talking about how city platforms, facilitating communications, driving potential commercial potential, addressing the issues around data use, data privacy issues, and all this in a very much a space where communication is key and building up trust is also key. This is not taken on by the market normally because, again, too many risks, upfront costs, and it's also not too much into the core business of those market players. So significant innovation is required to deliver this, and their digital cities are key. We will hear from this in a second how this looks in real life. So the approach is you seek a partner who will work on developing the solution, and maybe not only one partner, and also many partners, and you look into long-term returns of very much many decades of years. Key considerations that have to be taken into account is, do you have the resources to engage into a long, complex appointment process of several years? How will you share the risks and the rewards? Is this clearly communicated? Is it clearly defined? Do you need to readjust this? How will you ensure that your partner or partners perform adequately according to the city strategy, for instance? And how can you balance your objectives with the partners asked for returns? Interesting questions. Maybe Roland, you may be able to answer one of them. And I would like to introduce you. You work as program manager for the digital city of Rotterdam. You have also experiences in the private field. You own a geoinformation consultancy. And what I found there, you have a curiosity around the question, to whom belongs the digital city? Which is an interesting question to ask. So you're working on this digital twin Rotterdam, a digital copy of the city based on real-time data describing the current physical reality. That's very much sounds very interesting to get to know more. As any further ado, Roland, the floor is yours.
Thank you. To look if I have the right presentation here.
Looks like.
Okay. Oh, I don't know if something goes wrong here. Oh, I cannot see my presentation.
Now we see your presentation, and now with F5, you should be able to make it large.
Large. It won't go. Ah, there it is.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I don't know if I can answer all the key questions that you formulated in the beginning, but I will try and see how far we come. And maybe another time we can go more in depth if people are interested. But at first, I want to say something about the context of why we're working on this digital city program. And the story for us always starts at that we see what we call city. The definition of that is changing. And to see that, I always start with what the city was, and that always starts with us people. So what you see here, what we call social reality, stands for everything that we people are, what we people do, how we communicate, how we interact, how we behave ourselves, all that kind of stuff. That's all combined under the title of social reality. But as human beings, we're always do that in a physical surroundings. We're physical beings. So we're always in some constant dynamics with our physical surroundings. So one hand, we're influenced and in the way we feel and behave by the physical surroundings. Think about that you communicate differently in the church than at the marketplace. So that's doing something with us. And on the other hand, we're constantly shaping the physical surroundings around us. So that constant dynamics between those social and physical reality, that's what you could call the traditional city. This is how we develop our cities for ages. But recently, a new reality has risen, and that's what we call the digital reality. And that's much more than just something new that we need to incorporate in our existing definition of the traditional city. So it's not just a tool that we need to incorporate in our traditional thinking. No, it's completely changing the way our cities are shaped. And where you see that the most is in what we call the digital social reality dimension. On that dimension, with coming of internet, smartphones, social media, Facebook, all that kind of stuff, there's an enormous dynamics erosion on that digital social dimension. And it also has its consequences on the physical social dimension. Think about the platform economy and the Uber and Airbnbs and Amazons, what kind of impact those companies have on our physical city. In some sense, it's very simple. In Silicon Valley, some smart guys put a program on the internet, and we in our city face the consequences of that. So that's the new dynamics. And on the digital physical reality, we see that there's still not really much development at this moment. There's a lot of going on, especially if, for instance, in Rotterdam, we made an inventory about 2 years ago, and we came up with a list with more than 350 smart city initiatives in Rotterdam. Now, that sounds a lot, but at the same time, it also raises the question, we can do 1,000 smart city projects, but we still won't be a smart city. So there's something different between doing smart city projects and becoming a smart city. And what's that difference? And we really believe that's what we call in the connection. So we really believe that we need to develop something that really can be a basic connection on the digital physical dimension to connect all those individual silo developments. And that's where the digital city program is aiming at. And from there, of course, in the later phase, we also want to influence on that other dimensions. And in the end, you could say that when you really talk about a smart and, in Rotterdam case, a resilient city, that will be determined in the way that we are able to connect those three realities together, and the way they can stimulate and facilitate each other. And the better they work together, the more smart and resilient you will be as a city. Now, when you look at the what we call the urban digital ecosystem of Rotterdam, what we're looking at, then we see a couple of layered model for us. And from the perspective of the municipality, that starts with that we as a municipality should create a digital foundation, as we call it, so that we are able to disclose our data, etc., well managed, privacy proof, etc., etc. And on top of those, the digital foundation, you can build a platform for the municipality itself. Or it could be internal, it could also be shared externally, but it's still a platform of the municipality. But what we are aiming at is develop an open urban platform for the city. And it will include our 3D digital twin, as mentioned. But the big difference is when you say, okay, we want to develop a platform for the city, then it also raises the question, what is the role of a government in that? And I will come back to that later. When you develop a platform for yourself as a municipality, you don't have that question. But when you develop a platform for the city, then that question rises. Now, and on top of that, we see the digital urban ecosystem in which that open urban platform is, in our opinion, an essential piece of enabling infrastructure. So to really let the urban digital ecosystem work, the platform is essential. And of course, last but not least, the Rotterdam ecosystem is not an ecosystem on itself. We're all also surrounded and connected to all kinds of other ecosystems. So in the end, it's very important that also ecosystems between themselves are interconnected or interoperable. So that, and that also is the case for the platforms. Now, why do we, as a municipality, I wrote that question, why should we as a municipality take a role in this? And that really is for us, a very fundamental question. Because at this moment, when you look in the world at the developments, then you see that at one hand, we have all kind of private companies developing all kind of private platforms. And especially the big companies in America are very busy with that. But not only America, also Huawei, Siemens, all those companies. And they offer us complete solutions. On the other hand, we see the development of all kind of public platforms, like in China or Singapore, Iran, that kind of constructions where the public party is completely taking everything into control. You could see this as two extremes on the same dimension. And for us, that raises the question, okay, that private platforms where we sell ourselves out to private companies, I don't believe that's the right way to go. And on the other hand, when you look at the developments in countries like China, where the public parties are completely in control, I also don't believe that is in Europe a workable model. So for us, the question rises, where do we stand in this extremes, between these two extremes? And of course, we will end up somewhere in the middle in some kind of public-private partnership. That's where we're aiming at. Now, how does our roadmap for the development of our open platform looks like? Here you see the roadmap that we came up with, and it all started in 2015 with some first ideas, and that led to the preparation of a program in 2016, and we used the European project Espresso for that. It really helped us to create the strategic vision and the architectural principles on which our platform should be based. Now, after that preparation, we started to do several proof of concept to really find out how the platform should look like in terms of functionalities. And for that, we used the Ruggedized project, in which we developed the first two proof of concept under the name of the 3D city operations model. But Ruggedized development within Ruggedized stopped, so we couldn't go further in that project to our third and final proof of concept. So we needed to think about something else. And in the end, it meant that we need to go into procurement phase to select parties to develop further. But because we still need to have a third proof of concept, still need to do a development phase. We didn't want to procure now for the third proof of concept, and after the third proof of concept, need to procure again for the operational phase. Now we wanted to combine those two, those two steps in one procurement. And if the development phase is successful, then we want to go with the same parties, go operational. That's the idea. And the normal procurement procedures don't allow that. So we need to find procurement forms that make it possible for us to combine those two phases. And there are the new innovative forms of procurement that we came up with that that we can use here. I can come back to that later, what those procurement forms are. But those procurement forms demand that you ask the market to confirm that what you want is also really innovative. So to do an innovative procurement, you need the market to confirm upfront that what you want is also seen by the market as innovative. And
sorry to be not so innovative, but time is running and you would need to come to the conclusion. Sorry.
Okay. Yes. Now, and to do that, market consultation is the right instrument. Here they have some findings that we came up with. I will highlight the most important ones, and that is that we believe that the platform in itself, in the end, should be self-sustainable. So as government, we don't want to put money every year after year in it to keep it alive. So, but how do we do it? And the market says to us, the market parties from the market consultation say to us, okay, we believe it's possible, but we have a big problem, because we believe that the return on investment on such a platform is a long-term investment, and it will take 7 up until 10 years to get a positive return on investment. And for companies, that's much too long. They operate with arrow eyes with 3 to maximum 5 years. So the period here is too long, and they expect the government to invest in the first years where the risks are the highest. As I said about the procurement, there are 2 innovative procurement forms. That's the competitive dialogue or the innovative partnership. And we're now researching which of the 2 we need to follow in the next couple of months, because we will start our procurement as planned in the 3rd quarter of this year. Oh yeah, and very interesting also is that the most companies that we talk to also foresee a role for the government. Yeah, I don't know the right translation in English. In Dutch, we call it marktmeester. In English, I translate that with market master, which may be market regulator. You could also see it like that, but most companies want the government to play a role as some kind of independent market policeman that controls if everything's going right, and to put their name to it. And the last thing, also very important, this kind of developments take, in my opinion, the attitude to think big, to have big dreams, but at the same time act small, and always remember that the success of this kind of developments is only 25% of technique, and 75% is most of the time the changing attitude of people and the organizational change. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for your rich contribution. And it's all about people in the end that handle those technology. I really very much appreciated this last point made from you. We reached the end of our webinar, and we reached the moment where you can raise your hand again and ask any kind of questions to our 4 presenters on the 4 different models there. And I would like to invite Georg to give it a try to ask a question. Georg, do you have something in mind?
Hi, Philip. Well, to be quite honest, I don't have a specific question, let's say, for each of the presenters, since what I saw and what is quite evident from all the presentations is that the pivotal role of cities, or like the taking of many roles in this context of smart cities, was very evident. What I would like to ask our valued presenters is if they have like one thing they want to give to the audience as the one really important takeaway. So just one quick bullet, if you want, for each of the speakers. How would that be? Anyone, please.
As I ended last, I will start here, here maybe with one message. And I would say, as a public entity, don't let you trap yourself into nice offerings of big companies that want to develop complete systems for you and completely yeah, it's a bit like the AAS construction, the as a service construction. It sounds very nice, but in the end, you sell your whole assets in that. So I really would say, really think about this kind of developments, what kind of position that you need to take in that yourself as a municipality or other kind of public entity, and not go for the easy way and sell everything to one big company.
Okay,
That's good.
Thank you very much. So
Yes.
that's really addressing kind of the need-driven approach. Shall we take the order just, backwards, or is there anyone else who want to?
No, I'm actually happy to applaud Roland's very clever conclusion. it aligns well with what I have been saying in my first presentation. So sorry, Philip, for skipping the order here. You know, public sectors, they should find out what they own, what assets do they own, and then they should be very clear on what it is they want to achieve. Do they want to achieve more room for urban expansion, a more inclusive city, or do they want to leverage finances for public infrastructure investments? So they should be very clear on what do they own, how can they leverage it to achieve long-term goals. And this is an important exercise in relating to Roland's comment. Very too often, public authorities, they sell out on valuable assets because they don't take this more holistic approach. They think, oh, we have a little building here. There's a private developer that wants to pay 20 million euros for it. Let's just sell it.
Yeah.
You know?
Thank you very much, Luise. I need to also give an opportunity to the other two remaining speakers to give us their takeaways. Thank you very much. So we would still have Gonzalo and also Renske. So what's your thoughts?
I'm happy to. Yeah, I'm happy to say something also in line with Luise, what she just said on the holistic approach, and also in line with what Roland said, that I would also add that don't, you know, reach out actively to your stakeholders. Don't wait until companies come to you, but engage them actively, not only companies, but also researchers, of course, also citizens. Let's not forget to involve those from the start and involve them in your innovation process. And don't stay, that the city shouldn't stay within their own silos, which all too often happens. So I think this, it's kind of in line probably with what the others said.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Gonzalo. Any thought?
Yes. Well, I'm also in line with the comments with the other panelists. Maybe just related to this innovation project or demonstration projects, I would like to say that maybe we have to try solutions, to try different alternatives to the challenges that we the cities have. As in the example I exposed today, we didn't find the right solution for the problem at the very first try. So we keep trying, and you have to keep trying, and you cannot work alone to find this solution. We have to collaborate with the private sector and also the academia. I guess this is quite important. So we have to take the opportunity of this, for instance, European project, to try different solutions, because we have to innovate. We have to find solutions for the new problems that the cities are facing. So just try and test different solutions.
Yeah, keep trying. Don't give up. That's a very let's say nice takeaway, I guess. Even
very much
COVID-19 times.
Yeah. So we have a comment there in the chat that may round this up. It says, within smart city projects, this might entail requirements, criteria related to the adoption of co-design and participatory methodologies whenever relevant for the specific subject of procurement. So we may want to be inclusive in have those consultation processes, the communication setup. And as we are talking about communication, unfortunately, time is over of this recorded webinar. And basically, I have one slide here. Georg, can you, in 1 minute, tell us what is this slide about?
Well, yes, I will try. Thank you, Philip. Well, this is all about, let's say, matchmaking. So the service, we can keep that slide, Philip. You don't have to transfer control to me.
Yeah, I didn't do anything.
I don't know how this happened.
Fair enough. No, again, I took it back. Floor is yours.
So very quickly, the EIP-SCC Marketplace, which is also organizing this webinar, is at your service if you seek financing for your projects, if you want to shape your projects into bankability and maturity in order to present them to investors. And if you don't know where to look for solutions, then we also provide a decent collection of best practices, things which have already been implemented, ready for scaling up, replication, and so on. And we call that Explore. So please feel cordially invited to get your head around on the EIP-SCC Marketplace, join the matchmaking. It's all free of charge, so please register today to know more about it. And I think here I should stop. Thank you.
Philip, you're on mute in case you were talking.
Thank you very much for everybody that basically was with us here, the presenters, Georg for co-hosting this here and sharing all the insights there. If we missed one or the other questions in the chat, we respond in writing. You will have all this recording and all the presentations on the website that you can see here on the screen. Do not hesitate to contact us. Stay healthy and enjoy a good day. Goodbye to everyone.
Goodbye. Also, ciao.